Climate change is a major issue affecting the world, but Sierra Leone seems to be inhumanly neglecting it. Many of the urgent and easiest changes to implement remains a mystery, a challenge in a country where farmers continue to overuse resources for subsistence farming, animal herding, mining, and harvesting. These are crucial activities for the country, but the intensity at which these eat away at our resources needs to be highlighted. In developing countries such as Sierra Leone, emissions are mostly due to intense agriculture, frequent and unsupervised waste burning, and poor waste management policies.
Vast source of climate change contribution from the developed world, including swine. It's from agriculture. It's from burning the vegetation, from adding, burning, slash and burn practice that is the most widespread in the country, in all of the parts of the country. It's the main contributor to climate change.
In rural areas, burning normally occurs during preparation for the next planting season before plowing through a method of slashing and burning. People set fire to the waste after clearing the leaves and waste from the fields, and the fire will roam randomly through the other farmlands. Other times, land is burnt to build houses. The burning releases carbon dioxide, which contributes to global warming. This can lead to mass crop failure and erratic rainfalls that affect the yield for that particular season.
Farmers in the country and even non-farmers are aware that there are predictions regarding the weather, and relating those predictions to particular times of the year are no longer accurate, and that increasingly the weather is behaving stranger and stranger and stranger.
As the case for farmers whose crops were damaged by the late rains in January this year.
Right now, before temperature will be getting early, but then the rain the can late, or sometimes the rain the kind any so all only will affect you.
Little or no effort is made by the local farmers to curtail the negative activities that give rise to the problem because they don't understand and thus don't believe that climate change affects their production yield.
These people might not know the expression, the terminology, climate change, but they are aware that the climate is going, let me use the term, permit my saying, crazy.
Burning waste is a very common method of waste disposal. It happens everywhere, even in some of the Freetown main roads.
Burning is taking place in every community in Sierra Leone, and this is a typical example of one burning taking place in the west end of Freetown, Godrich Juba axis, right under the bridge, the main way to the Godrich community. Many of the residents in this area largely depend on dumping their garbages and waste on an unprotected open lot, mostly garbage from domestic use.
If you are new in town, you will think perhaps a building is on fire. The growing number of factories and cars add to the effect of climate change. Another contributing factors that leads to climate change in Sierra Leone are mining and deforestation. The cutting down of trees for timber logging and charcoal burning is one of the most lucrative business in Sierra Leone, and yet has irreparable harm to the environment. The removal of trees adds to the increase of leaching to the soil and high level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Therefore, the trees which can absorb this carbon dioxide are not enough or no longer in existence. This action increases poverty, the result of climate change.
Harmful to the community, so when I say living, it's deep, when I dig so.
Well, what you make? So don't you know? We chance no day. We say my believe. It's not the first we come police to her. So that we get small things. Where picking there? I know. You take pan work. Other thing no do for do. Pass more do that. I will very leave it.
Mining companies and investment in mining activities is growing faster than any other economic sector in Sierra Leone. Its contribution is reflecting on the country's 35% GDP growth for the previous years. But it is also one of the most hazardous activities to the environment.
This a mining site for stone, because Kenema is predominantly a community without iron stones. So they mine the hearts for rough stones. As you can see, the vast land, all the rocks being pelted in corner side are all stones being dug from the ground for concreting of various houses. And these activities taking place in almost all the rural areas of Kenema.
Partly what the challenge is in the country is that we have a multiplicity of mandates. So you have one department with a certain policy to attract investors, to make sure that there is maximum, maximization of what we get from our mining sector. And then there is another department that wants to ensure that the environment, is sustainably managed. And that, I think, is the challenge. The gap between the policy and the practice. And honestly, we wouldn't be doing all of what we are doing if a lot was being achieved on the implementation front. So I think the policies that are, we even have the Environment Protection Agency. The country has tried to set up institutions really that would do a lot to make sure that the environment is sustainably managed. But the reality is there is a wide gap between what's happening. I think, in fact, the damage to the environment in recent years is worse than we have seen ever before in the country. I think we have the worst rate of deforestation following when the conflict ended in the country. And now is when we think the world knows most about climate change and its effects on humanity, including, for example, developing countries like Sierra Leone, where 65% of the population depend on agriculture, and agriculture that we practice using primitive, methods. So we are going to be the worst hit with increase in climate change, and we are the ones who are doing the least about, cutting emissions.
Sierra Leone, like many other countries, will become significantly warmer by the end of the century if solutions such as raising the awareness about the effects of climate change, diversification of income-generating activities, and increase in micro-grants and subsidies to farmers. Since no single solution exists, it's a burden that needs to be shared across society evenly. From policymakers to farmers, every Sierra Leonean should help this transition towards a low-emission development pathway.